Have you ever seen an entire family of medical professionals, doctors, surgeons, hospital executives, turn their backs on their dying mother simply because she could no longer advance their careers? That's exactly what happened to me 3 months ago. While my mother was fading at Seattle Presbyterian, my brother Marcus was completing his 200th surgery just 3 floors above her. My sister Victoria was sitting in a board meeting only 2 blocks away. 47 relatives working in healthcare, yet not one could spare even an hour for the woman who built their entire foundation. They didn't send flowers, didn't call, didn't acknowledge her at all, almost as if she had already been erased from the family's story. What they didn't realize was that Mom had been preparing for this moment for 15 years. The letter the nurse gave me as she took her last breath wasn't only her final message. It held the blueprint to a $340 million medical empire they assumed belonged to them. My name is Alana Hodges. I'm 34, and today I'm explaining how my mother's final letter transformed me from the family's disappointment into the one person they never expected to challenge them. If you're watching this, please subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. The Hodges name carries influence in Seattle's medical world. For 3 generations, our family has produced surgeons, hospital leaders, and researchers. My grandfather founded Hodges Medical Group in 1954, growing it from a single clinic into a $340 million healthcare network with 12 facilities across Washington. My brother Marcus, now 42, became the family star, a cardiac surgeon performing more than 200 operations each year at Seattle Presbyterian. Our home's walls were covered with his awards: Top 40 Under 40, Surgeon of the Year, photos with politicians. Every family event began with someone asking about his latest operation. My sister Victoria, 38, managed the largest private hospital in Seattle with near military efficiency. She turned a failing facility around in 18 months, and the board treated her accomplishments as unmatched. At dinners, she casually mentioned lunch meetings with the mayor or her upcoming guest lecture at Harvard Medical School. And then there was me, the Wharton MBA, who chose strategy consulting instead of medicine, the one who preferred algorithms over surgeries. To my family, my role as a strategic director at a Fortune 500 tech company meant very little. Anyone can sit behind a screen, Marcus often said, but can you hold a human heart in your hands? The irony was that while they saved lives one at a time, I was building AI systems capable of identifying rare diseases for millions. But within the Hodges circle, if you didn't wear a white coat, you were essentially invisible. What I couldn't understand then was why my mother chose to spend her final days with the family's so-called failure instead of her celebrated children. Christmas 2023 made it painfully clear where I ranked. Our annual holiday gathering at Marcus's Bellevue mansion functioned like a medical conference disguised as a party. 47 relatives, all in healthcare, comparing achievements between champagne toasts and surgical stories. When I arrived, the seating chart said everything. Marcus had literally placed me at the children's table. I sat between my 8-year-old nephew and 10-year-old cousin, eating from a paper plate while the adults dined with fine china across the room. At least the kids might grow up to be doctors, Marcus joked during his toast, motioning toward the children's table. Unlike certain people wasting their talent on, what is it again, Alana? Instagram strategies? Laughter filled the room. Dozens of voices echoing off the high ceilings. Victoria added, "Remember when Alana wanted to be a doctor? Good thing she learned her limits early." I smiled and stayed quiet, fitting the role they had assigned me. What they didn't know was that only 3 hours earlier, I had signed a $500,000 consulting contract with Tech Venture Partners to design the IPO strategy for their healthcare division. The bonus alone exceeded Victoria's yearly salary, but I kept that to myself. In my family's view, tech money didn't count. It wasn't real work. Uncle Robert, a semi-retired anesthesiologist, even patted my head as if I were a child. "Don't worry," he said. "Not everyone is built for real responsibility." I spent the evening helping the kids with dessert, listening to Marcus entertain the adults with the story of his 200th surgery, wondering whether Mom noticed how her own children treated one another. For 5 years, I had served as Haggis Medical Group's unpaid IT consultant, convinced that supporting them would eventually earn me a place at the table. When their patient management system crashed in 2019, who did Marcus call at 2 a.m.? Me. I spent 70 hours rebuilding their entire digital network and implementing security protocols that protected them from a ransomware attack that struck 3 other Seattle hospitals. Those hospitals lost millions. Haggis Medical Group didn't lose a cent. When Victoria needed to upgrade her hospital's diagnostic systems, I designed an AI-assisted triage protocol that cut wait times by 40% and raised diagnostic accuracy by 23%. In its first month, those improvements saved 18 documented lives. 2,000 hours of my work over 5 years, yet no mention in annual reports, no acknowledgement at board meetings. When the Seattle Times praised Haggis Medical Group for its digital transformation, Victoria told reporters they had hired the best consultants money could buy. She had never paid me $1. It's family helping family, Marcus reminded me whenever I submitted an invoice. You wouldn't charge your own blood, right? Think of it as your contribution to real medicine. The equation was simple. 2,000 hours, millions saved, 0 recognition. That was my place in the Haggis family ledger. Then the email arrived a week before Mom passed. Alana, we need to discuss your future. Come alone. Don't tell your siblings. It was the last message she ever sent me. And now, sitting in the waiting room at Morrison & Associates 3 months later, I could still feel the weight of that message. Haggis Medical Group wasn't just a business. It was a $340 million organization with 12 facilities, 30,000 employees, and contracts with every major insurer in the Pacific Northwest. And Marcus was on the verge of destroying everything. The merger papers with SoFarm International had quietly circulated among board members. Marcus thought he was being discreet, but I saw the documents during one of my unpaid consulting sessions. SoFarm offered $180 million for 51% ownership, barely half the company's true value. The hidden clause? Marcus would receive a $50 million facilitation payment, while my mother's vision of community-focused care would be replaced by a profit-driven model. 70 years of work built by my grandparents' effort and my mother's leadership would be reduced to a corporate asset. The 2 free clinics my mother personally funded would shut down within 6 months. The charity ward she insisted on maintaining would be replaced by luxury suites. Everything she believed in would be dismantled for Marcus's payout. If I stayed silent, I would lose more than money. I would be losing the last part of my mother still alive in the world. Her belief that medicine should help everyone, not just those who could afford it. But speaking out meant conflict. Marcus influenced the board through confidence and pressure. Victoria earned loyalty through authority. 47 family members would support them without hesitation. I had only my strategic knowledge, my laptop, and whatever Mom had locked away in that safety deposit box at Chase Private Banking. The stakes were enormous. $340 million, 3,000 jobs, my mother's legacy, and my final chance to prove that I belonged in this family, not as the ignored tech sibling, but as a true Haggis heir. Mom's letter was written on her personal stationery, the same high-quality cream paper she reserved for important moments. Her handwriting, usually precise, showed the unsteadiness of her final days. My dearest Alana, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And you're likely sitting alone while your siblings divide what they assume I left behind. They see medicine, titles, and operating rooms. I see systems, strategy, and vision. They saved hundreds. You will save millions. For 15 years, I watched you build real impact in Silicon Valley, while your siblings focused on their reputations in surgery suites. Every ignored invitation, every dismissed accomplishment, every Christmas spent at the children's table, I saw all of it, and I planned accordingly. The including T opens box 447 at the Chase Private Banking downtown branch. Inside are documents that will shift everything. The 5 people listed are the only ones you can rely on. James Morrison, estate attorney. David Campbell, CEO of Tech Venture Partners. Margaret Chen, Chase Private Wealth Advisor. Dr. Samuel Roberts, independent board member. Patricia Williams, Securities and Exchange Commission. Your siblings know nothing about the $12 million trust I created in 2009, nor do they know about the 35% of Hages Medical Group I've held in your name through a blind trust. They've been acting under the assumption that Marcus's 20% gives him control. They are wrong. Do not reveal this before the shareholders' meeting. Let them show who they truly are in public. When the time is right, you will recognize it. Remember, they honor traditional medicine above all else. Make them face their own values. All my love, Mom. The letter felt like she was still speaking. Her strategic thinking remained several steps ahead, even in death. Elea. Just while her children operated in checkers. If you've ever felt misunderstood or undervalued by your family, type I relate in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's about to happen. This story will show how those closest to us can sometimes understand us the least. Morrison and Associates occupied the entire 47th floor of the Columbia Center, with a conference room overlooking Elliott Bay. At exactly 9:00 a.m., I entered to find 47 family members already seated, their conversations blending medical terminology with investment debates. Marcus stood at the head of the table, projecting authority. "You don't need to be here, Alana," he said. "Mom invited me." I held up her letter. "She was heavily medicated," Victoria replied from beside him, not exactly thinking clearly. "Morphine doesn't make you forget your children," I answered. Taking the only open seat at the far end, Marcus's jaw tensed. "What could you possibly add to a discussion about medical assets?" he asked. "I'm here to listen." "Then listen from outside," he said. "This meeting is for stakeholders. I'm family." "Family?" Marcus's laugh was sharp. "What have you contributed in 15 years? How many surgeries? How many lives? What journals have published your work?" The ring quieted, 47 faces waiting for my humiliation. This was Marcus's territory, and he was ready for a public cut. "You're right," I said softly. "I haven't saved lives in operating rooms." "Exactly," Victoria added, her smile rigid. "So why put yourself through this?" James Morrison cleared his throat from the doorway. "We should begin. Mrs. Hages was very clear about the required attendees." Marcus waved a hand. "Fine. She can watch her siblings inherit what she could never earn." Morrison glanced at me, and for a moment I saw something unexpected: anticipation. The next half hour became a coordinated effort to push me out. As Morrison reviewed the properties, the family physically positioned themselves to shut me out. Cousin Jennifer, whom I'd helped get into Johns Hopkins, shifted her chair to block my view. "Maybe check your emails," she whispered. "This is pretty advanced medical finance." Uncle Robert stood and closed the blinds behind me. "The glare is distracting those of us handling serious work," he announced, leaving my side of the room in shadow. When the new hospital wing was mentioned, Victoria cut in. "That's the Marcus Hages Cardiac Center, named for someone who truly contributed." She looked at me. "Some build legacies, others simply exist." 47 backs turned in near unison, creating a barrier of white coats and exclusion. Their message was unmistakable. "You don't belong here." I pulled out my phone, not to check emails, but to record. The SEC would care about merger discussions happening in what Marcus believed was a private family meeting. Morrison continued observing. When Marcus boasted about the international deal he negotiated, Morrison's pen moved quickly. When Victoria discussed restructuring redundancies, he underlined a note twice. "Before we go further," Morrison said, "I should mention the supplemental document Mrs. Eleanor Hayes requested be read after the primary estate review." Marcus stiffened. "What supplemental document?" His calm cracked. He walked down the table toward me. the sound of his steps echoing across the marble floor. "Let's resolve this privately," he said, pulling out his personal checkbook. $50,000. Today. You leave now and never come to another family business meeting." The room froze. This was Marcus's standard tactic: remove problems with cash. "That's generous," I said, not touching the check. "More than generous," Victoria added. "Take it and hold on to some dignity. Or stay and end up with nothing." "You're not in Mom's will for any medical assets," Marcus continued. "Morrison can confirm." Morrison nodded. "The med are designated, yes." "See," Marcus said, tearing off the check. 50,000 or zero. Choose wisely." Cousin Jennifer spoke up from the wall of backs. "Honestly, that's probably more than she makes doing whatever she does. Social media?" I stood and looked Marcus directly in the eyes. "I'm staying." His face reddened, the same shade it turned during his well-known operating room outbursts. "You stubborn." "Mr. Hodges," Morrison cut in, his tone firm. "We should address the supplemental documents. They involve assets outside the medical estate." Victoria narrowed her gaze. "What kind of assets?" Morrison lifted a sealed envelope with the Chase private banking logo. "Assets held in trust since 2009. Assets with an already established owner." Marcus's check drifted from his hand to the table. "What are you talking about?" My phone vibrated, an incoming call from David Campbell, CEO of Tech Venture Partners. The timing was intentional. He was one of the 5 names Mom trusted. "I need to take this," I said, answering on speaker. "Hi, David." "Perfect timing, Alana," he said. "The board approved the IPO filing. We need your strategic advisor's signature by noon. The valuation is $2.3 billion, mainly due to your integration strategy." Marcus scoffed loudly enough for David to hear. "Is this some startup stunt?" "Who is that?" David asked, voice sharpening. "My brother," I replied. "Dr. Marcus Hodges." "The same Marcus pushing the SoFar merger that will eliminate community healthcare in Washington?" David asked. "That Marcus?" The room went still. David's disapproval was clear. Marcus stepped back. "How does he—" "Alana's been advising us on healthcare disruption," David continued. "She predicted your merger attempt 6 months ago, called it predictable medical establishment behavior. Her counter strategy is why 3 major tech firms are entering the Seattle healthcare market. Also, Alana, the board approved your advisory shares. Another $5 million vested." Victoria gripped the table. $5 million? "I'll call you back," I said. Marcus stepped forward. "These arrangements were made long before the medical acquisitions you've been discussing." "What arrangements?" I asked. "I'm the executor of her estate. I should know everything." "You're the executor of her medical estate," Morrison corrected. "This is something entirely separate." Victoria whipped out her phone, typing frantically. "I'm calling our lawyers." "This sounds completely illegal." "It's all legitimate and filed with the SEC in 2009, Morrison replied calmly. Mrs. Hodges was exceptionally thorough. She set up a trust, moved assets, and made the necessary preparations for today. "What kind of preparations?" Uncle Robert demanded from his spot among the 47 shareholders. Morrison's eyes met mine. "Preparations ensuring the right person leads Hodges Medical Group into the future." Mrs. Hodges believed healthcare needed to evolve, that technology and medicine would merge. Victoria gripped the table. $5 million? "I'll call you back," I said. Marcus stepped forward. "These arrangements were made long before the medical acquisitions you've been discussing." "What arrangements?" I asked. "I'm the executor of her estate. I should know everything." "You're the executor of her medical estate," Morrison corrected. "This is something entirely separate." Victoria whipped out her phone, typing frantically. "I'm calling our lawyers. This sounds completely illegal. It's all legitimate and filed with the SEC in 2009, Morrison replied calmly. Mrs. Hodges was exceptionally thorough. She set up a trust, moved assets, and made the necessary preparations for today. "What kind of preparations?" Uncle Robert demanded, from his spot among the 47 shareholders. Morrison's eyes met mine. preparations ensuring the right person leads Hajj's medical group into the future. Mrs. Hodes believed healthcare needed to evolve, that technology and medicine would merge, and that someone grounded in both worlds would be essential. That's absurd, Marcus snapped. I've been trained for leadership since you were 12, Morrison finished. Yes, she mentioned that. She also noted that in 15 years of preparation, you never once asked her about her vision for the future. You assumed you already understood it. He revealed another document. Everything will be presented at the shareholders' meeting on March 15th, per her written instructions. Fairmont Olympic Hotel, 2 p.m. I expect you'll all attend. Marcus's jaw tensed. What are you hiding? Nothing. I'm following Eleanor's timeline. March 15th arrived with Seattle's usual gray drizzle, but inside the Fairmont Olympic Hotel's grand ballroom, the energy was electric. Nearly 300 people filled the space. Shareholders, medical journalists, and representatives from Bloomberg, Reuters, and every major healthcare organization in the Pacific Northwest. Marcus had crafted the meeting as his coronation. Banners reading Hajj's Medical Group, the future of healthcare, framed the stage. He stood centered beneath them in his finest Italian suit. The wireless mic clipped proudly to his lapel. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice steeped in confidence from 1,000 surgeries. The Hajj's family has served Seattle for 3 generations. My grandfather opened a single clinic. My mother expanded to 12 facilities. And today, with my leadership, we are ready for global expansion. Applause spread across the ballroom. I watched from the back row, manila folder resting in my lap, as Marcus painted his dynasty. The Hajj's family, he continued, gesturing to Victoria, is a lineage of medical professionals. My sister Victoria, who turned Cascade Private Hospital around, and myself, with over 2,000 cardiac surgeries. We embody medical excellence. Then he spotted me. Of course, he added, voice shifting, not everyone in our family chose our calling. Some pursue simpler paths, less meaningful ones, but we don't let one bad apple spoil our medical heritage. Uneasy laughter rippled. A Bloomberg reporter immediately began typing. And that is why, Marcus declared, we're implementing new bylaws. Only medical professionals will hold voting shares moving forward. We must protect the purity of our mission. I stood. The room fell silent as I walked down the aisle, heels clicking on marble. Victoria stepped forward, intercepting. Before any disruptions, here is our 5-year projection under the new structure. The screen lit up, charts outlining the systematic removal of non-medical shareholders. A group that included exactly one person, me. The audience shifted, realizing they were watching a public execution. As you can see, Victoria said, circling my name with the laser pointer, removing unqualified influences will ensure medical integrity. Some people think watching Grey's Anatomy makes them experts. The joke fell flat. Marcus Ray. We're not being cruel. We're being realistic. Would you want someone who's never held a scalpel deciding surgical protocols? Someone whose biggest accomplishment is making computers talk? A Reuters reporter raised her hand. Dr. Hodes, are you referring to a specific family member? I'm referring to standards, Marcus replied smoothly. Excellence demands exclusivity. I reached the steps to the stage. Security moved to block me, until Morrison entered from a side door, followed by David Campbell and 3 others from my mother's confidential list. I believe Miss Hodges has something to present, Morrison announced. His legal authority froze security in place. The audience leaned in. Phones lifted. The Bloomberg reporter was already live streaming. Victoria snapped. This is a private meeting. A shareholders meeting, I corrected, stepping onto the stage. And I have an announcement regarding shareholdings. 300 eyes locked on me. Marcus and Victoria flanked me like statues. I have documentation relating to ownership of Hajj's Medical Group, I said, steadying my voice. Marcus laughed into the mic. Everyone, my sister thinks she has documentation. What's next, Alana? Bought a share on Robinhood? A few pity laughs. I opened the manila folder and pulled out the first document. This is a certificate of ownership filed with the SEC in 2009, notarized by Morrison and Associates, and verified through Chase Private Banking. That's impossible, Victoria sputtered. I've reviewed all ownership records. You've seen the public records, Morrison said firmly. Mrs. Eleanor Hodges maintained private trusts that weren't required to be disclosed until activation. Activation? Marcus's voice cracked. What do you mean, activation? I held the certificate high, letting the gold seal and official stance gleam. As of today, I own 35% of Hodges Medical Group. Silence, absolute and total. Then Marcus gave a dry, desperate laugh. Her shares were divided between the children she told you about, I said. But she had a longer plan. When I chose Stanford over medical school, when you all dismissed me, she placed shares into a blind trust in my name. David Campbell stepped forward. I can confirm this. We've been working with Miss Hodges knowing she is the majority shareholder. It's why Tech Venture Partners selected her as our healthcare strategy advisor. The room detonated, cameras flashing, reporters shouting. Everything shifted in seconds. This is the moment everything changes, I said. If you want to see how Marcus handles losing control of his empire, hit that like button. Drop your predictions below and share this with anyone who's ever been underestimated by their family. Morrison stepped to center stage, leather portfolio in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm James Morrison, estate attorney for Eleanor Hodges. I confirm Ms. Alana Hodges is the largest individual shareholder. He displayed due. Her shares were divided between the children she told you about, I said. That she had a longer plan. When I chose Stanford over medical school, when you all dismissed me, she placed shares into a blind trust in my name. David Campbell stepped forward. I can confirm this. We've been working with Ms. Hodges knowing she is the majority shareholder. It's why Tech Venture Partners selected her as our healthcare strategy advisor. The room detonated, cameras flashing, reporters shouting. Everything shifted in seconds. This is the moment everything changes, I said. If you want to see how Marcus handles losing control of his empire, hit that like button. Drop your predictions below, and share this with anyone who's ever been underestimated by their family. Morrison stepped to center stage, leather portfolio in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm James Morrison, estate attorney for Eleanor Hodges. I confirm Ms. Alana Hodges is the largest individual shareholder. He displayed due, bearing multiple seals. Trust number TMH 2098847, established 2009. Initial transfer of 15% ownership, with additional transfers in 2011, 2015, and 2019, totaling 35%. The math was brutal. Marcus, 20%. Victoria, 12%. Other shareholders, 33%. Me, 35%. I controlled the company. This is fraud, Marcus shouted, composure shattered. Mom would never. Your mother was explicit, Morrison said, projecting her written statement. My daughter Alana sees the future, while my other children cling to the past. Healthcare is no longer only surgery. It's systems, data, and access. She understands this. They do not. Gasps swept the ballroom. Reuters began typing furiously. Victoria grabbed the mic. Even if this is real, she knows nothing about medicine. She can't. Can't what? I asked calmly. Can't stop you from selling our community hospitals to Saparm? Can't block Marcus from collecting his $50 million commission while gutting Mom's charity programs. Marcus's face was, how do you know about? Because I actually read the board minutes, I said. All of them, including the private ones. Chaos broke loose. This was no longer a family argument. It was a corporate uprising. David Campbell commanded the room. Since we're discussing qualifications, let's correct the record. He projected an email onto the screen. This is from our board. Ms. Hodges advised our $2.3 billion IPO, the largest healthcare tech offering in Northwest history. Her strategies raised our valuation by 40%. Her AI protocols are used in 16 major hospital systems. Goldman Sachs called her the architect of modern healthcare integration. He turned to the audience. She declined a $5 million bonus because she wanted to save this company. That's tech money, hardly real, Marcus muttered. Real enough that her models kept 12 rural hospitals from shutting down, David countered. Her algorithms identified rare diseases in over 10,000 patients. P. Might have died waiting for traditional diagnosis. You've saved 2,000 lives, Dr. Hodes. She's saved 5 times that with code. The Bloomberg reporter stood. Mr. Campbell, are you saying Miss Hodges has been running a parallel healthcare operation? I'm saying she's been building the future while her family clung to the past. He added, the only reason Hodges Medical Group hasn't been bought by a tech giant already is because she convinced us to wait. Victoria collapsed into a chair, reality finally sinking in. I pulled out Mom's final letter, hands steady despite the emotion rising in my chest. And the room fell silent, ending the call. Marcus forced a laugh. Tech bubble money, it won't last a year. Morrison spoke calmly. Speaking of money that will last, we should address the trust Eleanor created in 2009. The room felt colder. He opened the envelope with deliberate care. The document inside, stamped with Chase Private Banking's gold seal, carried immediate formal, undeniable. Mrs. Eleanor Hodges established several financial arrangements she chose not to disclose to the family, Morrison began, his voice steady like a verdict being delivered. Before we vote on anything, I said, the shareholders deserve to hear Eleanor Hodges' actual vision. The room went still as I began reading. To the shareholders of Hodges Medical Group, if you're hearing this, then my daughter Alana has finally stepped into her rightful role. For 15 years, I watched my medical children dismiss her because she chose circuits over scalpels. They never understood she wasn't abandoning medicine, she was advancing it. While Marcus performed surgeries, Alana built systems designed to prevent those surgeries in the first place. While Victoria managed a single hospital, Alana developed platforms capable of managing hundreds. They saved lives in operating rooms. She saved lives at scale. I transferred 35% ownership to Alana, not out of favoritism, out of strategy. The future of healthcare lies not in surgical skill, but in intelligent systems. Not in individual brilliance, but in accessible innovation. Marcus and Victoria excel at what medicine was. Alana understands what medicine must become. The community clinics, the free care programs, the outreach efforts, these were never tax write-offs. They were the heart of our mission. Any merger that threatens them betrays everything we built. Any leader who chooses profit over patience has lost sight of our purpose. Alana never sought your approval because she didn't need it. She had mine, and now she has the authority to guide Hodges Medical Group toward the future, not drag it into the past. Trust her vision. I always did. Eleanor Hodges. When I finished, several board members wiped tears from their eyes. Even the Reuters reporter had stopped typing. Marcus stood frozen, Mom's words landing like a final judgment. Motion to cancel the SoFarm merger, I said quietly. All in favor. Motion to terminate the SoFarm merger agreement, I repeated louder. As majority shareholder, I call for an immediate vote. You can't just, Marcus began. According to the bylaws, Morrison cut in, any shareholder with more than 30% may call an emergency vote. Ms. Hayes owns 35. Board members exchanged looks. Dr. Samuel Roberts, the independent director Mom mentioned in her letter, rose first. I second the motion. The SoFarm deal undervalues our assets by 47%. I've warned Marcus for months. He ignored me. All in favor, I asked. Hands lifted one by one, then in a wave. My 35%, Robert's 8%, 3 institutional investors holding 15%. Even a few family members, free from Marcus's shadow, raised their hands. Motion passes with 58% approval, Morrison announced. The SoFarm merger is terminated. Marcus's face flushed from red to purple. That's $50 million, I said, that you are personally taking, selling off Mom's legacy. And according to the SEC filing you signed, any canceled merger triggers a clawback of $3 million in company funds you already spent. Victoria gasped. Marcus, you said there was no risk. There wasn't, he sputtered. Not until she exercised my legal rights as majority shareholder, I finished. I tapped my phone, bringing up another document. Motion to remove Dr. Marcus Hages as CEO for breach of fiduciary duty. The SoFarm negotiations violated 3 board resolutions protecting our charitable programs. The vote was even faster this time, 62% in favor. Motion carries, Morrison said. Dr. Marcus Hages is removed as CEO, effective immediately. The Bloomberg headline was already live. Family coup, tech visionary ousts medical dynasty in boardroom showdown. The room erupted, directors reorganizing, investors whispering, reporters firing off updates. Marcus stood at the podium, helpless as his empire collapsed. Dr. Robe. Dick, the mic. We need interim leadership. I nominate Alana Hodges as strategic board chair. Seconded, said Margaret Chen from Chase Private Banking. We've tracked her strategic decisions for 15 years. She's prepared. She's not even a doctor, Victoria protested weakly. Neither was Steve Jobs, Roberts replied. Yet he transformed medical technology. The role requires vision, not a medical license. The vote wasn't close, 71% in favor. Even relatives who'd ignored me for years raised their hands, suddenly recognizing the shift in power. I stepped forward. Victoria will remain at Cascade Private Hospital, but she'll report to the board, not the CEO. Any objections? Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it. No. As for the new CEO, I continued, we will launch a national search, and it will not be someone who values earnings over patience or connections over competence. A Reuters reporter stood. Miss Hodges, what is your first priority? The Eleanor H. Community Care Initiative, I replied. A $30 million investment into free clinics and AI-assisted diagnostics for underserved communities. Exactly what my mother wanted. And exactly what Seattle needs. Applause broke out, loud and genuine. Not from my family, who sat stone still, but from board members, investors, and medical professionals who'd been stifled by Marcus's ego for years. Marcus finally spoke, voice hollow. You plan this. After the meeting dissolved into chaos, reporters rushing to write stories, directors making emergency calls, family members whispering in disbelief, Marcus cornered me in the hallway. You planned this, he repeated, fists clenched. This whole thing was calculated. I didn't plan any of it, I said evenly. Mom did. I simply followed her instructions. Victoria joined him, heels clicking sharply. How long have you known? Since the day she died, I answered. But it wouldn't have mattered if I told you. You both dismissed me for years. Why would that change just because I had power? We're family, Marcus insisted, as though it meant something now. Like when you told me about the SoFarm deal, I asked. Or included me in board meetings. Or acknowledged my work on the company's digital infrastructure. I pulled up a folder of emails on my phone, hundreds of them. 500 emails over 5 years. I asked to help, to contribute, to be involved. You answered none of them. Victoria's expression faltered. We thought you were happy in tech, she whispered. I was. I am. But I also wanted to be part of our legacy. You made it clear only MDs mattered. So I built my own legacy. Mom recognized it, even when you didn't. Marcus tried one last tactic. The family will never accept you. They already did, I said. 71% voted me in. I paused, then added, your belongings will be packed and sent to your home. Don't return to the executive floor. Security's been notified. They silenced her, behind me as I walked away. Within 48 hours, the story exploded across financial and medical media. Forbes. The $50 million mistake. How ego cost a CEO everything. They detailed how Marcus's arrogance cost him not only the CEO role, but 3 other board positions. When news of the failed merger spread, the market reacted instantly. Hajj's Medical Group stock jumped 18% in 2 days, adding $61 million in value. CNBC called it the most dramatic family takeover since the Murdochs. Bloomberg was even harsher. Marcus Hajj spent 15 years building a medical empire through nepotism. His sister destroyed it in 15 minutes, with facts. 5 acquisition offers arrived within a week, the highest from Amazon Healthcare at $520 million. I rejected every one. Hajj's Medical Group is not for sale, I said. We're just getting started. The medical community's reaction was revealing. The AMA stayed neutral, but the Healthcare Innovation Council, the Moltzend, keynote their annual conference. Young doctors flooded my inbox, thrilled by a future where technology and medicine truly work together. Marcus, meanwhile, faced a completely different storm. The state medical board launched an investigation into whether he put personal profit above patient care. 3 past malpractice settlements suddenly resurfaced. The numbers didn't lie. 5 board seats, 0. $50 million windfall, $3 million debt. Respected CEO, public cautionary tale. My phone turned into a museum of family hypocrisy. Within 72 hours, relatives who hadn't spoken to me in a decade suddenly wanted meetings, partnerships, favors. Jennifer texted, "Always knew you were destined for greatness. Coffee soon?" I screenshot it beside her old message. "Stop bothering me with your computer stuff." Uncle Robert emailed a proposal for a family alliance. This from the man who literally turned his back on me at the estate meeting. I forwarded it to my assistant with one word: deck. The saddest attempt came from Marcus's wife, Patricia, who had never spoken to me directly in 20 years. She called crying about their mortgage, their kids' tuition, how Marcus was suffering. I reminded her of the Christmas dinner where she loudly asked if I could even afford my contribution to the family gift exchange. Only 2 cousins reached out sincerely. Sarah, the nurse who'd always been kind, and Michael, the med student who'd once quietly asked for career advice. They were the only ones I replied to. I created a folder called Family Revisionist History and saved every message, not for legal reasons, but as reminders of why boundaries exist. Blocking the other 45 relatives took 5 minutes. Sarah and Michael stayed. My real family, David Campbell, my team, my mentors, celebrated with me. I looked at Morrison. Amazing how 35% ownership fixes people's memory. He just smiled. The professional fallout hit Marcus like a chain reaction, quick and humiliating. His carefully curated medical reputation didn't just crack, it collapsed publicly. The first blow came swiftly, his board seats. Within 14 days, he was quietly removed from Seattle Presbyterian, Cascade Medical Ventures, and Northwest Surgical Associates. The stated reasons were corporate redirects, fresh leadership, strategic alignment, but everyone knew the real cause. His failed $50 million SOPARM deal revealed him as someone willing to trade patient care for personal profit. Victoria's downfall was messier. An internal audit I initiated uncovered $2.3 million in misallocated funds at her hospital. Charity budgets funneled into executive bonuses. She wasn't terminated, but she accepted a step down to deputy director to avoid a full forensic investigation. Her Harvard guest lecture? Canceled without comment. The financial impact was brutal. Marcus had already spent $8 million from his expected SOPARM payout on a new Bellevue mansion. With the merger dead and his CEO salary gone, he had to list his penthouse at a $2 million loss. The Seattle Times even published a photo of the for sale sign with the headline, "How the Mighty Fall." His medical practice spiraled too. 3 partners formally asked him to take a sabbatical after patients began requesting other surgeons. "I don't want someone who'd sell out healthcare cutting me open," one patient told reporters. Then the IRS struck. The collapsed merger triggered an audit of Marcus's old tax filings, specifically his suspicious research travel, trips that looked a lot like family vacations. He now faced a $4.7 million tax bill, including penalties. In 2 weeks, he went from Seattle's medical kingpin to a public warning about arrogance, greed, and underestimating the wrong person. While his world imploded, mine expanded in ways I hadn't dared imagine. The numbers didn't lie. Market analysts finally recognized the true value of Haj's Medical under new leadership. My net worth surged from $2 million to $78 million. The 35% stake Mon hid for 15 years was suddenly worth more than Marcus and Victoria had earned in their entire careers. 3 TED Talk invitations arrived within a month. I accepted the one titled, "When Family Rejects Your Future: Building Tomorrow's Healthcare Despite Yesterday's Doubts." It eventually hit 12 million views. Harvard Business School announced a case study, The Haj's Reversal. When outsiders become essential insiders, they interviewed me for 6 straight hours, fascinated by Mom's strategy and my quiet execution of it. But the accomplishment that mattered most was breaking ground on the Eleanor Haj's Community Care Center, a cutting-edge facility offering free healthcare paired with AI diagnostics. Hundreds attended the ceremony, including the governor, who called it the future of accessible medicine. I held Mom's photo while turning the first shovel of dirt. Q2 results proved we were on the right path. Revenue up 32%, patient complaints cut in half, all charity programs protected and expanded. The same family members who mocked my computer hobby now watched those skills revitalize a declining medical empire. David Campbell sent a simple card. Your mother saw what others refused, that healing is about systems that let medicine reach everyone. I framed it beside my MBA, my tech awards, and Mom's picture. The wall that once felt empty now finally made sense. 6 months after the takeover, Marcus asked, via his attorney, for a meeting. I agreed on strict terms. Morrison's office, lawyers present, recorded, capped at 30 minutes. Marcus entered looking smaller. Designer suits replaced with off-the-rack, his once effortless confidence replaced by caution. He sat across from me like a defendant, not a brother. I need to return to the company, he said. Not as CEO, just as a surgeon. I have skills. You do, I said. But Haj's Medical doesn't need them. Seattle has Otha. Apply there. They won't hire me, you know that. That's a consequence of your decisions, not mine. Victoria joined via video call and tried emotional pressure. We're family, Alana. Doesn't that matter to you? It matters deeply, I said. That's why your 15 years of treatment toward me defined exactly what our relationship is. We were wrong, Marcus said quietly. Yes, and mistakes have consequences. I slid a document forward. These are the terms for any future interaction. All communication through assistants or lawyers. No family gatherings where business may arise. No requests for recommendations or favors. No using our relation for professional leverage. This is cruel, Victoria whispered. This is called boundaries, I replied. Something I should have set long ago. You aren't entitled to my success just because we share DNA. You made that clear when you assumed I had nothing to offer. Morrison ended the meeting at precisely 30 minutes. Wordlessly. Q2 under my strategy proved once again that competence wins over credentials. Highest revenue in the company's 70-year history. 94% patient satisfaction. Operational costs down 18% due to AI-driven efficiency. The Eleanor Haj's Center treated its first 1,000 patients for free. Our diagnostic AI detected 17 rare diseases that traditional screenings missed. Local news called it revolutionary healthcare equality. I called it Mom's dream finally realized. Marcus asked twice more to be reinstated. The board denied him unanimously, without needing my vote. His reputation in Seattle medicine was radioactive. He eventually accepted a position in Portland, a major downgrade that forced him to sell his remaining Seattle properties. Victoria adjusted more gracefully. She focused on improving operations at her single hospital rather than empire building. In a rare moment of honesty, she told me, "You were right. I was so busy managing one hospital that I never saw the bigger vision Mom saw in you." Our new CEO, Dr. James Park, Korean American with degrees in both medicine and technology, embodied everything the old guard resisted: diversity, innovation, and actual patient-first leadership. Marcus would have despised him. Mom would have adored him. Q3 projections continued upward. 3 more community centers were approved. The same boardroom where I'd been dismissed now treated my strategies with the seriousness they always deserved. "Best quarter in 70 years, Dr. Roberts announced. All because we finally let the right person lead, degree or not." 2 months after the takeover, I started therapy. Not because I was collapsing, but because I wanted to process 15 years of family trauma the right way. Dr. Martinez specialized in family dynamics. "You spent years chasing their approval," she said during our 6th session. "How does it feel realizing you never actually needed it?" "Free," I answered instantly. "And angry it took." Losing Mom to understand it. The anger slowly dissolved, replaced with something better: peace. I built a new support system intentionally. David Campbell became the mentor Marcus never was. My team celebrated my wins without jealousy. Friends in tech health understood my vision without explanation. I began mentoring young women in tech, especially those from medical families who belittled their career choices. My monthly workshop, Breaking the Stethoscope Ceiling, drew hundreds. One young woman cried after a session, "My parents are both doctors. They said my CS degree was a waste. You proved it isn't." Every Sunday, I visited Mom's grave at Lakeview Cemetery. The ornate Hodges family plot had room for everyone, except the daughter who didn't become a doctor. So I bought my own plot nearby, close enough to stay near Mom, far enough to keep family boundaries, even in death. "I did it, Mom," I whispered after Q4 results. "Maybe not the way you planned, but the way it needed to happen. The company is thriving. Your vision is alive. And I finally understand. My worth never depended on their approval." A year earlier, I stood alone at her deathbed. Now, I stood alone by choice, knowing the difference between loneliness and solitude. Looking back, Mom's greatest gift wasn't the 35% ownership or the trust fund. It was teaching me, through her death and her final letter, that family isn't about blood. It's about who recognizes your value without needing a performance. For 15 years, I twisted myself trying to earn a seat at a table that was never built for me. I brought skills, connections, unpaid labor, hoping achievement would turn into acceptance. It never did. Success without a stethoscope was invisible in the Hodges family. But here's the truth. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time, not the 15th. Marcus and Victoria didn't suddenly become dismissive after Mom died. They'd always been that way. I just kept wishing their love would eventually outweigh their obsession with prestige. The boundaries I set weren't revenge. They were acceptance. Some relationships are transactional. When you have nothing they want, you become invisible. And the moment you possess something they need, power, influence, they suddenly remember you exist. That isn't love. That's opportunism. Your worth isn't determined by people who only value you when it benefits them. Sometimes the strongest act of self-love is stopping the chase for affection that should have been freely given. Set boundaries from clarity, not anger. Build your chosen family from those who celebrated you before you had power, not those who remembered you after. Success isn't proving doubters wrong. It's believing the ones who never doubted you, including yourself. Hodges Medical is thriving. Mom's mission is alive. And I've made peace with being the family outlier who became the family leader. Maybe that's exactly how the story was meant to you. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever been the black sheep who became the success story, I want to hear from you. Type boundaries in the comments if you've ever had to set limits with family who only valued you when they needed something. Subscribe for more stories about women who refused to shrink themselves for others' comfort. And remember, your worth was never negotiable. Thank you for watching.